Today we are going to review a couple skills at the beginning of our volume chapter so that we can utilize these equations in order to find the volume of different areas, of different figures. So today we're going to just work with area, which is only with two-dimensional shapes. Volume, which is going to be later, is going to be for three-dimensional shapes. So the first part of our review is going to be the area of circles. It says, find the area of each circle, use 3.14 for pi, and round to one decimal point if needed. Also label. With geometry, you must label what kind of measurement it is. Is it inches, kilometers, centimeters, meters, feet? We don't know. We have to label it at the end. So first, let's write what the equation for the area of a circle is. So the area of a circle is equal to pi r squared. So we find out what r is and we square it. Then we multiply it by 3.14. Remember, we are using 3.14 for pi. Not the pi button on a calculator, but 3.14. Now, let's first talk about what r means, okay? When we have a circle, the r is the radius. The radius is halfway around from the middle of the circle out, so it's halfway through the circle. Now, you guys will also see situations where we have the entire way across. That's called the diameter. Hopefully this is all review. So the diameter, sorry, it's a little messy. Now, the diameter is twice as long as the radius. So if we're given a diameter, we need to cut it in half so that the radius is given. So say this diameter is 10 inches long. Well, we're going to cut it in half so the radius is equal to 5 inches. Okay, so the radius is always half of the diameter. All right, let's go ahead and get into some examples so we can start finding out these areas. So what I like to do to help myself memorize equations is I like to write them frequently. So for one, I have area equals pi r squared. I know that's the area formula. So we are given this 12 inches and it's halfway across the circle, so we know that's our radius. So I'm going to plug it in. We have pi 12 squared. Okay, the 12 is our radius. Now we just start solving using order of operations. It's always parentheses, which I know we have with the 12, but we're not needing to simplify inside the parenthesis. So the next would be exponents. 12 squared is 12 times 12, which is 144. So I have pi times 144. Now pi, they told us to plug in 3.14 times 144. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to round to one decimal point. So the area that I end up getting is 452 and 2/10 inches. Okay, now for area, you always label it squared. Realistically, you should have gotten 452.16, but it said to round to one decimal place. So that is your answer. Go ahead and try the next three on your own. You all are given the radius. You're never given the diameter, so it's pretty simple. But always find the square of the radius, then multiply it by 3.14. Check back for your answers. All right, these should be your answers. Remember, you have to label your unit as well as square it because we are talking about area, and we are labeling to one decimal place. So go ahead and double check your answers. Maybe check and see if you plugged things into the calculator correctly, and just make sure you have the right answer. Now we're just given a radius for a circle. We aren't even given the circle itself, which is not really what is needed because we remember when our area is pi r squared, we just need the radius to plug in. We know what to plug in for pi, it's 3.14, so we just need the radius. So in this first example on number 5, I have to just plug it in. So instead of pi r squared, I'm going to plug in pi 2.6 squared. Now in your calculator, that's also 2.6 times itself. So 2.6 squared is pi times 6.76, and then we're going to multiply it by 3.14, okay? Now, I get this long decimal, but they're telling us to round to the nearest tenth, the one decimal place. So I know I didn't round it back here, but at the final answer I'm going to, it's going to be 21.2 inches squared, and that's going to be your answer. So don't try to round until the very end. If you do round, but your answer is somewhat close, I will give it to you. Don't worry. Go ahead and try the next three on your own and come back to check your answers. All right, these are the answers you should have gotten. Again, my answers, I did not round at all until the final answer. So 13.2 squared might have had a few decimal places in them, but I did not round until the very, very end. If your answer is close and you rounded earlier than the very last part, come check with me and make sure that the answer is correct, or try it again to see if that you get this same answer. Make sure you label your answers and label them correctly with the square. Now we're moving to composite figures. Composite figures are when you have two or more figures within one. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the area of the figures by breaking them into sections and adding the final decimal or the final areas together. But we do have to review some area equations. So the circle equation we just reviewed, it is pi r squared. Now a semicircle is half of a circle. So what we would do is we would find our area of a circle, pi r squared, and when we're done, we're going to divide by 2 to cut it in half. Now the area of rectangles and squares, you guys have learned for a very long time, it's base times height, or you guys have also done length times width, okay? So you have those areas, and then a triangle is 1/2 base times height, which is also the same thing as finding your rectangle or square, which is the base times height, and then dividing by 2, because a triangle is half of a rectangle. So when I'm getting into these examples, guys, I'm going to look at number 1. I just break my shapes into different shapes to make them easier. So this is kind of done for us, which is nice. But I'm given the semicircle and I have a rectangle. Okay, so with the semicircle, you guys can see this, this arrow pointing out. Well, imagine I had a full circle here. This is only going halfway across, and they're saying it's 10 inches. Well, guys, that's my radius right there. Okay, so for my semicircle, which I'm going to use this equation, I have my radius given. We already know what to plug in for pi. It's 3.14. And then with this 27 and 36 inches, we're going to use our rectangle equation. Okay, so we're going to find both of those areas right now. So let me do the, I'm going to do the rectangle one first. I like to think it's easier. Okay, so to find the area, we do base times height. So we're just going to plug it in. My base is 36 times the height, which is 27. All right, so when I go ahead and do the math, 36 times 27, I get 972 inches squared. So that's for the rectangle. All right, but now we have to do the semicircle. So for the semicircle, which we just talked about, and that does not look much like a semicircle, we have pi r squared divided by 2. So we know that pi is 3.14. We know that our radius is 10 squared, and then we're going to divide it by 2. Okay? So 10 squared is the first thing we do, which is 100 times 3.14. All right, so we are given, our numerator simplifies to 304 divided by 2. So when we go ahead and divide by 2, I get 157 inches squared. So that's cool. We have our semicircle and we have our rectangle. All we have to do is add them together for our final area. So I have 972 plus 157. When we add them together, I get 1,129 inches squared, and that is my final answer. So break them into parts and then move on. I'm going to get you guys started on the next one. I do have a rectangle and a triangle, all right? So for the rectangle, it's going to be 40 yards times 24. That's pretty simple, okay? Now for the triangle, we need to have a base and a height. So the base is a little longer than the rectangle we have previously. So if we move this up, we have 24 yards right here, but we also have a 4 yard on the edge along with another 4 yard. So when we add them all together, we actually get 32 yards as the base, okay? So that's going to be our base, and then this 24 yards that I completely covered, I didn't mean to, is the height. Do you see how they're saying, oh, this area right here, this length is 24 yards, okay? So that's actually going to be plugged into our triangle equation for base, which is 32, and then height, which is 24. So I'm going to go ahead and find the areas of both the rectangle and the triangle, then I'm going to add them together to get my final answer of the composite figure. Make sure you label them correctly. I'm going to go ahead, erase some stuff and organize it, but then show you the answer for number 2 in just a minute. So pause it, try it yourself, and come back. All right, so I got the triangle area was 384 yards squared. The rectangle area was 960 yards, and then when I added them together, I got 1,344 yards squared. Go ahead and try the next one on your own. It's a little simpler. You can choose to break this figure into any way, but what I'll do is I'll break it this way for you. So I have a square and a rectangle. Find the areas of both, then add them together to find your final answer. Come back for your answer to check. All right, so you guys should have gotten 16 meters squared for the square area and 32 meters squared for the rectangle. When I added them together, I got 48 meters squared. Go ahead and try the next 6 on your own, and then you'll have to come to me to see how your answers are. Make sure that you use the volumes at the top of the page to help you guys out. I will tell you guys that number 8, we have 2 semicircles here, guys. Think about it. If we were to push them together, it'd be 1 full circle. So on number 8, you're going to find a full area of a circle, and then you're going to deal with that rectangle as well. So just think about that. All right, good luck, and I'm sure you guys will do great.